Some rock stars are worshipped, others are absolutely despised. Same genre, same fame, very different legacies. Kurt Cobain, Freddie Mercury, Dave Grohl, Eric Clapton, Axl Rose, Marilyn Manson. This isn't about talent. It's about what they did when the spotlight was on. Because in rock history, love and hate are often separated by one decision. Kurt Cobain never wanted to be a rock god. He wanted the whole idea to die. And somehow, that's exactly how he became one. Nirvana didn't sound clean. It sounded wrong, too loud, too raw, too real. While rock was selling power, ego, and macho fantasies, Kurt tore the script apart. He openly attacked sexism, called out homophobia, refused the fake toughness rock was built on. He defended women, protected LGBTQ+ fans, spoke for kids who felt invisible. He wore dresses on stage, not to shock, but to expose how fragile rock masculinity really was. He called out abusive fans, even when it cost him cheers, even when it turned the crowd against him. Kurt hated being worshipped. He didn't want idols. He wanted honesty. Fame disgusted him, but connection saved him, at least for a while. He wasn't trying to lead a generation. He was trying to survive his own head. And that's why it still hits. Because Nirvana wasn't about rebellion. It was about recognition. 30 years later, millions still hear his voice and stop scrolling. Because it sounds like someone finally saying what they were afraid to feel. Eric Clapton is a guitar legend. Few musicians shaped blues rock the way he did. His tone, his influence, his fingerprints are everywhere. But his legacy is deeply divided, and not because of the music. In 1970, on stage, Clapton went on a racist rant that stunned the audience. At one point, he openly shouted, "Keep Britain white!" It wasn't subtle, it wasn't ironic, and it wasn't forgotten. That moment was so shocking it helped ignite the Rock Against Racism movement, a direct response to words many fans never expected to hear from a blues musician. Years later, more fractures appeared. Clapton admitted himself to violent abuse in his personal life. Not accusations, admissions. And yet, to this day, there's never been a full public reckoning. No clear apology, no real ownership. That's where the divide hardens. Some fans separate the music from the man. Others can't. Because talent doesn't erase harm, and influence doesn't excuse it. So here's the question people still argue about. How much can genius forgive? For many, Clapton crossed lines that skill alone can't undo. Freddie Mercury wasn't just a frontman. He was a force of nature. His Live Aid performance is still considered one of the greatest moments in music history. But offstage, Freddie was deeply generous, quietly helping friends, staff, and loved ones. When he was diagnosed with AIDS, he stayed silent, not to protect his image, but to protect others. Even near the end, he kept recording, still pushing his voice, still creating. Freddie didn't just make great music. He changed how the world saw identity, freedom, and self-expression. Courtney Love is one of the most polarizing figures in rock. As the frontwoman of Hole, she wrote raw, influential music. But her public image often drowned out her art. Chaotic interviews, public feuds, endless controversy. Fair or not, many fans stopped listening to the music and only heard the noise around it. And once that narrative takes over, it's almost impossible to escape. Dave Grohl is often called the nicest guy in rock. After losing Kurt Cobain, he nearly walked away from music entirely. Instead, he recorded an album alone, just to survive emotionally. That album became Foo Fighters. From finishing concerts with a broken leg, to inviting fans, even kids, on stage to play with him. Dave has always put people first, and some of the most powerful things he does happen when no one's watching. In 2023, he quietly showed up at a homeless shelter in LA with his own smoker, cooking for 24 hours straight to feed hundreds of people in need. Months later, he did the same thing again, this time in Australia. And on his 56th birthday, instead of celebrating with friends or family, Dave spent the entire day cooking for wildfire evacuees and local firefighters. Offstage, he feeds the homeless, supports communities, and avoids drama entirely. In a genre known for excess, Dave became its heart. Axl Rose had one of the greatest voices in rock history. Raw, dangerous, instantly recognizable, but he also built one of the worst reputations the genre has ever seen. Shows started late, concerts were canceled without warning, backstage chaos became the norm. At the height of Guns N' Roses' fame, fans never knew if Axl would even walk on stage, and when he did, it could be magic or a meltdown. Slowly, admiration turned into frustration. Frustration turned into resentment. Not because the music failed, it never did. Talent was never the problem. Discipline was. Ego was. In the end, Axl didn't lose fans because he lacked greatness. He lost them because greatness became unpredictable. Lemmy never chased trends. He didn't adapt to them. He ignored them completely. As the face of Motorhead, Lemmy lived exactly how he played, loud, fast, and unapologetic. No compromises, no polish, no filters. But behind the image, Lemmy was something rarer than a rock icon. He was humble. He was loyal. He treated roadies, fans, and legends the exact same way. No fake morals, no rock star ego, just honesty, straight to the point. When Lemmy died, the entire rock world stopped for a moment, not just to mourn a musician, but to say goodbye to something almost gone: authenticity. Lars Ulrich helped build Metallica from the ground up. Without him, the band simply doesn't exist. But he also became one of the most controversial figures in metal, not because of his drumming, not because of the music. Everything changed during the Napster era. When fans started sharing MP3s online, Lars didn't just criticize the platform, he sued it. And by extension, he sued the fans using it. While many artists stayed silent or adapted, Lars stood in court, holding names and filing lawsuits. To him, it was about protecting musicians. To fans, it felt like being punished for loving the band. That's when the relationship cracked. Metallica stopped feeling like the people's band. It started feeling controlled, corporate, and Lars, fairly or not, became the face of that fracture. So here's the real question. Was Lars right too early? Or did Metallica lose its soul the moment it fought its own fans?
I'd say in every fifth interview I do these days, there's a Napster 3-minute conversation in there. I mean, it's as you know, it's like it'll be part of my obituary. In my life, it's a footnote, but in some people's perception of who I am and what Metallica is, I understand that it's a big thing, and I accept that.
Chester Bennington didn't just sing about pain, he understood it. You could hear it in every scream, every whisper, every broken note. At a time when no one talked openly about depression, trauma, or isolation, Linkin Park put those feelings at the center of their music, not as a concept, but as a confession. Chester was never pretending to be okay. He spoke openly about his battles with addiction, anxiety, and depression. No masks, no heroic image, just honesty. For millions of people, his voice wasn't just entertainment. It was recognition. Proof that their pain had a sound, that they weren't weak, and that they weren't alone. When Chester died, fans didn't just mourn a singer. They mourned a lifeline. Someone who helped them survive their darkest moments. And even now, his voice still does what it always did. It listens. Bono wants to change the world. But here's the problem. Not everyone wants to hear it from him. U2's music is iconic. Stadium anthems, timeless songs, moments that defined generations. But the moment Bono stops singing and starts talking, the room often shifts. For decades, he's used his fame to fight poverty, debt, and injustice, meeting presidents, speaking at global summits, pushing real causes. And yet, criticism keeps following him. Accusations of being preachy, out of touch. Then came the tax controversies. Suddenly, the message felt complicated. When a rock star lectures the world while his band's money moves offshore, good intentions start to sound hollow. That's where the disconnect lives, not in what Bono believes, but in how it's received. Because in the end, impact isn't just about doing good, it's about trust. And once trust cracks, even the right message can feel wrong. Jack Black never tried to be cool, and that's exactly why it worked. In a world where rock stars were chasing darkness, danger, and mystique, Jack chose something risky: joy. With Tenacious D, he didn't parody rock. He celebrated it. Loud riffs, absurd lyrics, and musicianship good enough to shut up the skeptics. People laughed first. Then they realized something. This was real rock and roll. Then came School of Rock, not just a movie, a gateway, introducing an entire generation to AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, and The Who, teaching kids that loving rock wasn't about looking cool, it was about feeling it. And through all of it, Jack stayed the same. No scandals, no ego, no tortured genius routine, just pure love for music. Jack Black proved something most rock stars never dared to. You don't need darkness to be legendary. Sometimes joy is louder. Marilyn Manson built his entire career on shock. Not just controversy, shock as an identity. For years, outrage was the product. Provocative imagery, violent symbolism, a character designed to scare, offend, and challenge the culture. And for a long time, it worked. Fans defended it as performance art, a mirror held up to society's fears. But then something changed. When serious abuse allegations surfaced, the shock stopped feeling theatrical. It stopped feeling symbolic. Tours were canceled. Labels cut ties. Longtime collaborators walked away. And suddenly, the question wasn't about art anymore. It was about accountability. For many fans, the line between the character and the person vanished. What once felt like provocation now felt too close to reality. Because shock only works when it's clearly staged. When harm enters the picture, shock loses its meaning. Art can disturb. Art can provoke. But the moment shock becomes real harm, it stops being art. So here's the real question. Can you truly separate the music from the musician? Or once you know the story behind the sound, does it change everything? I want to know where you stand. Tell me in the comments.